The English Premier League returned over the weekend and has already conjured up some major talking points ahead of what looks to be a really enthralling season. Here's a look at the results from the opening weekend. Defending champions Manchester City started their title defence with a 2-0 win away to West Ham thanks to a debut double from the new signing Erling Haaland. City's closest challengers last season, Liverpool, failed to register a win, drawing 2-2 with newly promoted Fulham at Craven Cottage in a game that saw striker Darwin Núñez credited with his first goal for the club. Chelsea, Arsenal and Tottenham all won their respective fixtures, while Manchester United failed to give Erik ten Hag a win in his first official game for the club, losing 2-1 to Brighton at Old Trafford. Well, joining us now to discuss the weekend's result is Brent Sancho. Good afternoon, Brent.
Good afternoon, Mariah. Of course, good afternoon, Leighton, and to all your viewers across the Caribbean.
Thank you. Well, I think it's fitting that we start by talking about the defending champions, Manchester City. Is that the performance that you expected?
Yes, certainly. I think what we've seen from Manchester City over the years is a certain level of consistency in the way they play. They have been obviously the trendsetters and the team to beat in the EPL and Europe by extension. I think one of the question marks, of course, coming out of the Community Shield game last Saturday against Liverpool, of course, was whether or not their new signing, Erling Haaland, could fit in to the way that they play. And I think for a fact that the game over the weekend would have answered that emphatically. And I think for sure Manchester City, although it's very, very early, Mariah, seems to be the team to beat already.
Brent, people have been calling for an out-and-out striker for Manchester City for years. Now that Pep has gotten that out-and-out striker, how does that make the team better, given how they play in terms of, they're constantly passing, spreading defenses, at tempo? How does Haaland fit into that? What does he do that makes his team better now?
I think when you talk about world-class players, and Haaland is certainly that, and Manchester City certainly has an abundance and array of world-class players, it's all about adaptation. And what we saw in the game over the weekend against West Ham was a team that was adapting to Haaland. We saw more crosses into the box than Manchester City normally provides in a game. We saw more forward play to fit, of course, the strengths of Erling Haaland, which is his capacity to run onto footballs, his strength, his speed, and of course his finishing capabilities. And as the season goes on, Nathan, we would see more of that. I was a bit taken aback after the Community Shield game, where Haaland did not necessarily have a great game, that they were there were question marks by the various media houses of whether or not this will work. I think that is absurd, because you have now entered into the fray a top-level striker, arguably one of the best and most sought-after striker in world football in Haaland, into, of course, an already very, very talented Manchester team. So I think Erling Haaland and what he brings to the table and what he's able to do is certainly there to be seen, added to an already very potent Manchester City team. You certainly expect great things from this club.
Brent, I know it's only one game and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I will get ahead of myself. Do you think Erling Haaland is sort of on the track to get Golden Boot this season?
I think he will be there and thereabout, and it's simply because you look at the amount of chances that Manchester City create. I believe it's the highest in the league over the last couple of years. And you add a striker that has been red hot over the last couple of years to that formula. One would suggest that he will be within the scoring ranks. I think some of the tools that he would possess surely changes a bit the dimension and gives an added dimension, not necessarily change, but adds a dimension to Manchester City. And if you are a Manchester City fan, that is exciting stuff, because on a already very talented Manchester City team, already very established Manchester City team as it relates to European football and English Premier League football, now has an added dimension. So I think from that perspective, one would suggest that certainly the numbers that he could potentially get to if he stays fit and continues on the trajectory that he's currently on could be up there. And I'm even go as far as to say that it could be even record-breaking.
Let's look at Liverpool now, because they are the team that many people expect to challenge once again this year. Runners-up 3 of the last 4 seasons. They brought in Darwin Núñez, but they had a very inauspicious start to their season, coming from behind twice to draw with Fulham, a team that just got promoted. And of course, Liverpool didn't look particularly convincing in that match, despite the fact that they would have come in with a lot more confidence coming out of that Charity Shield match. What did you make of the performance? And where is this Liverpool weakness? Is it in midfield, as everybody seems to allude to, but Jurgen Klopp doesn't seem to think that way? What's your thoughts on how that match played out?
Well, but let me first say that I thought Fulham were exceptional on the weekend. I thought the way they played, they pressed high up the field. I think Mitrovic was outstanding, the Fulham forward. He harried and presented a lot of problems to Matip and Van Dijk. And because of that, Fulham did, of course, have a major part to play. From a Liverpool perspective, you would have to suggest that although they've added Núñez, who I think, again, like Haaland, is a very good addition, I still do have question marks. And I'm putting these question marks up against the standards that Liverpool would have set throughout the years, or certainly under Klopp, as it relates to this season. I do feel that they're a bit short in the middle of the part. I think, yes, Thiago Alcantara is an excellent player and does add a lot of different facets to this team. But I still think when you go past their starting trio, with his Fabinho and Henderson and, of course, Thiago Alcantara, then you start having a bit of question marks. And I think the loss of Sadio Mane as well could be one of the crucial points for Liverpool going into this season. Although, as I said, Núñez is an excellent addition. But I would have, from a Liverpool perspective, would have preferred to see Sadio Mane stay and, of course, Núñez add into that team. But as it sits right now, and again, it's still very early doors, I do, coming into the season, have my concerns for the Liverpool middle of the park, because I do feel that they're a bit short in that department. Jurgen
Klopp made mention of the dry pitch. We've seen teams use a dry pitch against Liverpool before. Is this a legitimate concern? Because there are people who are scoffing at it. But clearly, when you saw the pitch, it was dry. The ball was barely moving off the pitch after passes. But then they watered the pitch right after the match, which made a big difference. Is it a legitimate concern in your mind?
I don't like hearing those sorts of excuses, because my very simple answer is both teams would have played on the pitch. And Liverpool is a top-tier European team. They were European champions. Of course, they were EPL champions not too long ago. So they would have found ways of winning football matches. That has happened for Liverpool. So to make that excuse, I think it is not necessarily a legitimate one. The fact of the matter was, Fulham was exceptional. They played well. They played very well, and they were good value for the point that they got. And I think Liverpool at times looked a bit lethargic, and they looked like they would have gone into this match probably a bit overconfident, because their performance and their energy levels did not match Fulham. That is something that we see all the time from Liverpool. So I think in the broad sense of it, I would say no, because at the end of the day, as I said, both teams would have played on the pitch.
Right, and what about Chelsea's 1-0 win over Frank Lampard's Everton? Thomas Tuchel after the match saying, a win is a win, especially at a venue where Chelsea would have struggled before.
Yeah, they would have struggled before. It certainly wasn't a vintage Chelsea performance. I think they're still getting comfortable in their skin. They would have made a lot of significant transfers in the market, bringing players in. The new additions that they had on display on the weekend did do well. But I think in terms from a fluidity perspective, in terms of cohesion, I still think within there they still have to iron out those sorts of scenarios. They are going to get better as, of course, the season continues. They are still actively looking within the transfer market to add players to the squad, as we know. So I think Chelsea is a team that is going to continue to build. The question for Chelsea, with an improving Arsenal, certainly improving Tottenham, whether or not they are going to, of course, be part of that elusive top four that gets you into Champions League football. I think that really is a question for Chelsea. Can they get it right to make sure that they're part of that conversation?
Well, Brent, Sancho, new season, same Manchester United. It's a bit unfortunate that I don't have the two Manchester United fans on set, but they'll be back from tomorrow and we'll definitely love to hear them. What did you make of what we saw from Manchester United?
I was extremely disappointed, Mariah, in their performance. Of course, coming into the season, there was a lot of remarks and buoyancy as it relates to the preseason results. But what we saw in that game is the Manchester that we've seen over the last two seasons. Void of ideas, a team lacking in confidence, and a team lacking in identity. There's nothing inside of me that could say that Manchester United is going to compete for a top four spot, simply because when you look at the composition of that team, if you are reliant on Fred and McTominay to be the driving force that the team builds off of, I don't think you're going to get the results to get you into a top four. When you look at Manchester United's work so far in the transfer window compared to the other top four contenders, that's Arsenal, Chelsea, Spurs, of course, Liverpool, and Manchester City, it's nowhere close to be where they need to be. And I think Ten Hag would have, of course, described it publicly. It is one hell of a job that he has to do to turn Manchester United around.
Quick question. The argument is made often that when a new coach comes in, he needs time to get his system in place, to get the players familiar with his style of play. Could that be a reason to be patient, to expect Manchester United to be better as the season progresses and into next season, as opposed to maybe using the first match and drawing a conclusion about how the season is going to turn out?
Look, when you look, this is the same group of players that let Solskjaer down. It's the same group of players that let Rangnick down. And it's the same group of players that possibly is going to let Ten Hag down. There's something fundamentally wrong in that football club, why they're having these sorts of issues and troubles. When you look at what has happened in the transfer market, when you look at the direction of the club, and when you look at the conversation around the club, something is not right at Manchester United. It has not been corrected. It has not been, of course, facilitated. And that is why you're seeing the type of results season after season. Until they fix the fundamental issues at Manchester United, they are going to continue to struggle.
Yes, Brent. Well, you don't go anywhere because we have to continue talking football, but we're going to take a quick commercial break and come right back.